Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks so much for your prompt return from lunch. I know that lunch is an important part of the day, so we welcome you here to the university application workshop. We have here with us Mr. Cessalon, Ms. Leduc, and Ms. Cayford will also pop on very soon. She's just finishing up some CAF duty. We're here to walk you through the process of applying to university. Quite frankly, there are a lot of you. There are several of you that have already picked up your PIN numbers and you've probably already applied. We know that already. So hopefully that's going to help assure you that this is actually a very simple process. The most difficult part of it is really just narrowing your choices, right? That's the hardest part. But the actual application, applying, is pretty easy, and it's not something that needs to be done in one sitting. It's something that we can do over a period of time. You can log in and log out. You can make changes if you need to. So know that you're not stuck having to sit there for hours to complete it from start to finish. You can do this over a series of days, weeks, if you like, and we'll go over that today. So Mr. Cessalon, Ms. Leduc, Ms. Cayford, they are welcome to help me. Mr. Cessalon in particular, you know, he wants to help out with this presentation. He and I do these presentations. We've done many of them together, and I'm very thankful for that. So he's the only one that I'd like to be unmuted at this time so that he can jump on as needed. All right, but everyone else is muted at this time. If you would like to ask a question, you can do so, you know, through your teacher if you like. I know we have students that are at home, that are on spare at home, and they can ask questions as well. Quite honestly, it would be best if you want to write your questions down and just ask us via Edsby. Just Edsby message your guidance counselor, and that's probably the simplest, quickest way to get to us if we can't get to answering your questions today. Okay, all right, so let's get started. So here we go. We are applying through the OUAC, which is the Ontario Universities Application Center. Okay, so the ouac.on.ca is the website that we are going to reference, and you will be applying using the Undergrad 101 application. You're a current Ontario high school student. You're not to go and apply to any other application here. The 105 is for students who have already graduated high school, and the application fees, in fact, are higher than the Undergrad 101. So you definitely want to stick to the 101. That's where you're going to go.
Can I jump in here, Ms. Stanisic? Sure. If we could go back to the last slide just for a moment. I know some of you are thinking of applying to concurrent education as teachers following high school, but please still follow the 101. Do not apply to the teacher ed program. Go to the 101.
Great point. That's a really, really good point. The 101 is where you can actually indicate that you're interested in a teacher stream or concurrent ed. That's where you'll find all of that information. Absolutely. Okay, so as we said, it's submitted. Applications will be submitted through Ontario University's Application Center. You are identifying your choices through the OUAC. You're paying and submitting your application through the OUAC. And then what will happen is OUAC will communicate those choices to your schools of choice. So I'm just going to mute. Okay. Once those schools receive your application, your choices, then they will then send you a response email. So you should be looking for, once you have processed your application, you have completed it, you should be anticipating communication via email by those schools. All right. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Really important for you to have a current and valid email address that you will be putting onto your file, because this is a primary mode of communication for the university. So you're definitely going to want to ensure that you're getting all of the print material from the schools. The very first communication that comes back to you will be sort of a greeting, welcome, thank you, actually more like a thank you for your consideration, for your interest in our program. And in that email, they will also detail, remind you what it is that you applied to, and they will also remind you of the requirements for that program, as well as any supplemental criteria or applications that are required of you. So this is a really important email. I can't stress it enough for you to read everything, all the print text, and don't skim read it, right? This is one time, is that right, Mr. Sessalon, that we do not want to be
Yes.
skim
Oh,
reading, right? Mhm.
yeah. Read everything carefully. There may be deadlines, and I know some of you, I've taught some of you, deadlines are a bit of an issue. You really want to read things carefully so you know what you need to submit, when the deadlines are, and there's no flexibility on those deadlines. So you do want to know that well in advance. The other thing I'd just like to reemphasize here is you're not applying to each individual university by going to different sites. The great thing about OUAC is you're applying to all the schools on one site, which
Exactly.
is one of the amazing things about the OUAC.
Exactly. Very, very good. Yes, that's right. So we want you to use OU Info as your primary research tool. However, the OUAC is brilliant in that it's not only your application site, but it also allows you to browse programs as well. And it's quite thorough in its approach. It pretty much lays out for you what the requirements are, what the supplementals, if there are any supplementals. It's very, very good tool as well. OU Info really, we like it because it's really user friendly. We use it here in the office on a daily basis, multiple times a day, okay, because we know that OU Info is current. It reflects current data. It's the most relevant. It gives us competitive ranges for programs in Ontario based on last year's cohort and applicant pool. Okay, so it will actually help you to really kind of see like what is it that I'm aiming for in terms of my academic average, right, for a particular program. All right. Check your application often for accuracy. This is really important. Once you apply, you will be privy to all of your historical grades. You will see your academic file. If there are any errors, really, you're the one that needs to kind of keep control of that and be responsible for that. Okay. Because we have so many students that we manage, you only have yours to think about, right? So if you see anything that's off, if there's anything missing, contact your guidance counselor immediately. Okay, I'm still just admitting people in here.
And if there's a discrepancy between your name in our school system and on the OUAC envelope that was given to you, you really should see one of us. We want to make sure that there's not going to be a problem with that.
That's a very important point. It is important that the name that you submit is your legal name. It's the name that we have on file. Legal first and last name. We have had issues in the past where the names did not match, and it caused so much stress on the applicant. It was unnecessary. All right, so very, very important. Ensure that all supplemental application items are completed and submitted on time. Okay, that is also Mr. Sessalon did briefly speak to that.
I'll log into my Zoom account.
Okay,
Oh, no.
so the step one is to get your OUAC access codes. So if you haven't received, that's another name for it is your PIN number or PIN, your personal identification number. It comes in an envelope, a sealed envelope with your name on it. The name that you see, quite frankly, on that envelope is the name that we have in your file here at school. You have to remember that everything, when you are applying to Ontario universities, everything is submitted electronically for you by us, right? So this is why name should be the one that's in our system, right? Your marks, if there's a discrepancy, it needs to be corrected on our end because everything electronically goes through us. So you need to pick up that PIN number. It will have your PIN, a school number, and your student number. If you haven't received it, please come and visit us in guidance ASAP. Your PIN is confidential, so we don't want you sharing that with anyone else. And you really only need to submit it or input it once in your application. All right. But again, don't share it. Not a good idea.
Yeah, and if for any reason you lose that PIN number, you can't find that envelope, please come and see us as soon as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. We can help you with that. Okay, so step 2, visiting OU Info, right? Researching your university options, see what each university has to offer. We are hoping that since we got you really early in September, that you have hit the ground running. You've researched those options, you've hopefully narrowed your selection choice. You may be just in the process of narrowing in this moment, which is completely fine because we still have a lot of time. Okay, but definitely research, maybe even had some virtual visits, right? Virtual tours at certain campuses that you're interested in. Maybe you even took a walk through, you just went to visit in person, which would be great too. And more things are opening up, which is, it's feeling more and more promising for students to get back on campus, right, as we move ahead and move past this last couple of years of COVID, right? But this is something you should be doing right now. Read the 101 application guide. This you can access through the OUAC website. It has all sorts of really great information. Like I said, it's great. It's your application site, but it's also your guide to browsing programs, for learning more about the universities, all sorts of up-to-date information. There are how-to tutorials that can help you navigate both the OU Info and OUAC website. So really, there's really no reason why you can't figure this out and get the help that you need, and find ways to get the help that you need to make this as easy and as seamless a process as possible. Check out university publications, right? We talked about tours, websites. Talk to us, talk to your family, teachers, friends. You may not have an idea just yet of what program you want. Sometimes it's just a matter of, you've always wondered about what uncle so-and-so does for a living, or you find it interesting that your cousin's working there. What exactly are they doing? How did they get there? These kinds of things, this can open up all sorts of possibilities for you just by talking to the people that are closest to you. Write down your program choices and the program codes. This will help you when it comes time to filling out the application. Program codes will show you in the next few slides how to find them. And if you really want to go quickly through the OUAC application site, having the codes would help you fast track that and make it happen more sooner when you're submitting those program choices. Okay. So this is OU Info. If you haven't visited this yet, we urge you to do so. Okay, this is wonderful because you can search by program, you can search by university, or you can search as well for scholarships here under finance. A great way to search, the way I like to search, is by program, and we do keyword searches. You could just type in the keyword and all of the programs with that keyword will come up by, I think it's alphabetically by program title. And then you can go in and take a look at what the requirements are. You can then also move from from one screen, which says, gives you the requirements, but then you can go to the more extensive program details. And then you can also do more extensive university details, right? Where you can learn more about the university as well. So this is a great tool. The only drawback of this tool is that it's not password protected. Okay, so when you're doing your research, and if you, oh, by the way, if you want something handy to use to write down your choices and your program codes, if you go on to potential grads in EDSB, very early on, you got to kind of scroll down the posts because there's a lot of posts, I know, and I'm sorry sometimes about that, but I'm not sorry because we really like to keep you updated and informed. Okay, so we put a lot of stuff on there, but earlier in September we posted it was a sort of a planner, a one-page front to back planner where you could, if you wanted, you could print that off and you could use that as a tool to help keep those program choices in check, and also some place to document those codes as well. The thing with OU Info is you can actually go in and you can be searching and you can find programs that you really love, and there's a little check mark when you pull open a program and you see, oh, I like this program. You can punch in, click this little check mark, and it will start to tabulate the programs that you like. Then you can I always like print those off, because the drawback is once you X out of this site, that information is gone. Okay, but if you would like, that's a way of sort of keeping a handle on, what are my favorites, my top 5 that I've researched, right? That I really want to learn more about. So just a tip there for OU Info. Some basics to remember, okay, when you're researching that supplemental applications, there are certain programs that do require you to submit supplemental applications. Now, these supplementals are not due at the same time as your OUAC application. Your general OUAC application indicates your program choices, right? Then those choices will be communicated to the schools, right? The schools, remember, they're bouncing back an email to let you know, to thank you for taking interest and to remind you of the program that you've chosen, the requirements needed, that's subject specific requirements needed, and or if there are supplemental application items that are required. You will see that in this email. They will remind you. Now, be forewarned that when they remind you, they may only remind you once in that first initial email response, right? They will say, this is what you are required to do, or you must go in and sign into a student portal. Every school has a different, acronym for their portals, or you may need to set up an interview time, or you may need to set up a testing time. And here's the contact information, and here's the deadline for this. They'll probably only tell you that once. Nobody's going to set off any alarms, unless you set them for yourself, the day before that interview, the day before that essay is due, the day before. No one's going to do that. So you have to remember, you have to keep that in mind, understand what the criteria is for the supplementals, if there are any, and what the deadlines are. Okay. And they are firm deadlines. Okay. That's really important to note. Do you want to add
This is
anything?
about being organized, really. You need to be really organized. Maybe put a reminder in your phone for some of these particular supplementary application deadlines, because unlike high school, if you're a day late for some of these deadlines, not to create catastrophe or anything, but you will have missed the deadline. And there's, as Ms. Stanisic said, there's no flexibility there. So we want you to know how to play the game and win by the rules of the game. So have your eyes open and be aware that deadlines really, really matter for these applications.
Absolutely. Now, supplementals, if they are required, then they are used to consider for consideration for an offer of admission. So they are used in conjunction with your academics. Okay, so your grades plus the supplementals are typically scored, they're rated, they're graded, right? And they will be used to determine your candidacy for a program. Okay, so
well, Ms. Stanisic, what kind of preparation would a student have to do for these applications? Is 20 minutes, half an hour going to be enough for these applications?
That's yeah.
Or are we really looking at these with a fine-tooth comb?
Right. It's clearly not enough. It's not enough. These are things that you want to take time on. All right. And as it says in the next bullet, if you even are applying early, everyone needs to understand that the deadline for the essays will be the same for everyone. For example, they'll say to you, even if you're applying early, they may say you've got a 2-week block of time for submission in order to complete it. Now, do you need to take the entire 2 weeks? I would say yes. Do you start them even before maybe you apply to OUAC? I would say yes, right? Because you can find out what exactly is needed for some of these programs. There are other programs that might keep it hidden from you. They'll say to you, once you apply, then we'll respond to you with an email, and you can then start to sign on to our student portal, and there you will see there's a checklist there of to-dos for you to do, and we'll tell you what the criteria is. So they like to sort of keep it an even playing field. So they'll say let's say it's 2 weeks from submission. right? From submitting your OUAC, you have 2 weeks from that date, and you've got to complete your application, your supplementals. And yes, I would say take your time with it. Be meticulous. Be, very particular about how you want to structure your sentences, who you want to use to edit your work, depending on what that might be, right? Sometimes with some programs, you don't have a lot of time to prepare because there are some, I'm just thinking about business programs out there. There are some highly competitive ones that might ask you to answer a series of questions, and they may be timed questions. You may not have a lot of time necessarily to prepare to know what will be asked of you. They may, you may be able to find resources that might give you a hint or some sort of idea of what to expect, but we know that that's out there. But for the most part, you've got a block of time to really craft your wording, craft the work, make sure that what you submit is essentially flawless. It has been edited, revised, proofed, right? All of those good things, right? If it is in fact something that needs to be written, and that is a written submission. Okay.
I would urge you not to be your own proofreader as well. Get someone else to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some dates that may vary for the supplemental applications. We know that there are schools like, I believe it's Rotman Commerce, the supplemental is due by December 15th. I think that engineering science, it's a highly competitive program at U of T. December 1st is the deadline for the supplemental. And really, you sometimes with supplementals, profiles may be required of you where you'll have to sign in and log into student portal. I have the example here of Solace through Queens. There are others like U of T has, I think, Join, the acronym Join. There are so many others, but every school's got them. But you just have to be informed of what exactly is expected of you and where exactly to go and find those the criteria for the supplementals. Okay. Here's an example just on OU Info. If I'm looking here for Queens, it's an arts program. It does say to me, gives me the requirements for the program, English, grade 12 U English, and 5 additional for U or M. This is what I would call a general-based admissions program, right? The 5 additionals will be your top 5 grade 12 U or M level courses. There's nothing really specific here that's required of you in terms of subject. But I circled here, it's saying here that the high school transcript is just one piece of information that they're using to make the decision, right? They're saying that each applicant to Queens has a unique to-do list. Oh, where do I find the to-do list? Oh, guess what? You're going to find it on the Solace Student Center. Okay, how do I get there? Well, they're telling you that they'll send the student the Solace access after they've applied. So that's going to be included in your email response from Queens if you are in fact applying to Queens, and they'll give you that login information then. All right, then you can go in, check your to-do list, and that's where you'll see, okay, I've got this criteria, I need to meet these deadlines, this is what I got to do next, and you just follow along from there. Here we've got Rotman Commerce on OU Info again under requirements. This is where we find supplementals, right? Additional admission criteria. This is telling us that there's an online Rotman Commerce supplemental application. It must be completed. There's a link to the supplemental application, and it's telling us an additional fee of $50 is required. So there are supplementals that will charge additional, and they'll make it very clear in their literature. Okay, there's just another example there. Some other basics to remember. The required courses, of course, it varies with each program and school. And we know that the entrance average varies as well. We can say that we can use OU Info, and that could be sort of our benchmark, right? That's where we want to sort of our target range. That's what we want to reach if we're thinking of a particular program. Sixth grade 12 U&M courses. English is mandatory for most programs. Again, just know what's expected, right? And you can find those requirements on OU Info pretty easily. Repeated courses. For the most part, most schools and programs will accept the greater of the 2 marks. There are some exceptions, however, but those are few and far between. Some that I can think of that, might penalize a student for a repeated mark, like very competitive programs like Waterloo Engineering, Software Engineering. I'm thinking Rotman Commerce. Queen's in their literature has said that they'll take the most recent mark. I don't know if they've changed their literature recently, but the most recent mark to me does not sound necessarily like the greater of the 2 marks. But
Even Laurier Business
does the same.
Yes.
Okay. And I know Ontario Tech Engineering for a little while there, because it's really gaining the momentum.
Yes.
They're not wanting the repeat, right, of any of the required courses. Okay, so it's important for you to know what you're getting into, okay, and what's needed. Okay, but for the most part, I'd say the vast majority will accept the greater of the 2 marks. Okay. There could be specific criteria regarding program choices, like the number of choices that you can choose. We know typically, like just general based, for OUAC, you can only pick 3 programs per university, but there are some exceptions to that rule, U of T being one of them. All right. Ranking for really, we actually looked at this today, and there is no school that indicates that they want to be first on the ranking, the ranking choice, a number of choices, but sometimes the way that they dole out the offers of admission, we'll get to an example of that. The one I can think of now is Brock, but sometimes you might want to consider putting the program that you really want first so that you'll have the best chance. Let's just put it that way. I think I'm saying that correctly. We'll get to it when we get to the slide. It'll be more clear. Sometimes there's a faculty limit, the limit to the number of programs per faculty, and the co-op option. There are certain programs that do offer a co-op option. Just so everyone understands, the co-op option is the more competitive option. All right, so we would suggest that if you do want a program that offers a co-op option, we would suggest that you pick the co-op option, because if you were unsuccessful at receiving an offer of admission to the co-op option program, then they could consider giving you an alternative offer to the one without co-op, but they will never go the other way, because as I said, the co-op option is the more competitive one. All right, and the seats fill very quickly. Okay.
And remember, unlike high school, co-op placement at university is a paid placement, not unpaid. So
Yes.
that's why it's so competitive.
And sometimes with if you're choosing a co-op option program, the co-op option for a particular program, they may ask you for an interview. You might have to do that, okay, after you've applied to OUAC. Keep that in mind. Basics to remember. Again, we're on this, there's more. Summer school, night school, virtual learning, any course that is ministry accredited and approved will be considered for equal consideration, okay? So even if students are taking private school, if it is a ministry accredited course, it will be considered, okay, equally. You should notify your guidance counselor with, well, in this case, we don't have midterm marks right now, but a final grade. If you are especially taking a private school credit, we really need to know that you're registered. We need proof of registration, and we need an official document, the final, which would be the final report card, giving us the grade so that we can update your academic record, okay? Because the OUAC doesn't necessarily know that you're taking a course outside of your day school unless we indicate that in your file, okay? Some schools and programs may discourage non-traditional courses and or upgrades. We've already kind of touched on that. It's few and far between, not to worry. IEPs or accommodations, students do need to self-identify. with their IEP. If they do have accommodations for their learning, this is not something that goes with them. We do not communicate this to schools, nor do you communicate that anywhere in the OUAC application. Okay, so you need to visit student services on campus after applying to the program and indicate to them that you do require accommodations. Sometimes schools might ask for an educational assessment, but at least having an IEP and a copy of your IEP would be a great start. So we need to mark our calendars, right? We know that the access code letters have been distributed. That was October, November. The deadline for submitting your application to the OUAC is January 13th. And there are programs that are still open after this deadline. But what students need to understand is January 13th is an equal consideration deadline. We are not like the states, where we don't have rolling offers of admissions. We have a set number of seats in a set number of programs. And once those seats are filled, then there's no opportunity to add more, you see. So for equal consideration, especially to highly competitive programs, January 13th is that date where everyone is taken on an equal playing field. And then after that date, if there are supplementals, right, that are needed for certain programs, and it's in particular highly competitive programs, those will be required of you, I would say, 2 weeks, maybe as late as February 1st. I can't see a deadline past February 1st, to be quite honest, for a supplemental application, because these schools need to start assessing and grading the supplementals, right, along with your grades, in order to come to decisions, right, so that they can be ready for the rolling out of offers. And the rollout of offers happens in 3 rounds. It happens in March, April, and May. Okay, May 27th, as you can see, is the latest date that you can expect a response to your application for admission. You should receive a response either way. You're getting a response, okay? However it goes, universities are bound to give you an answer, all right? And May 27th is the last possible day that they can do that. Now, you might hear from some of the most competitive schools in the province. You might hear from them on May 27th, right? Because they're getting through so many applications, so many supplementals. They may take their time with their decision. So don't fret, right? If your friend is sitting next to you right now and has already received a conditional offer because they applied early and this and that and the other, or even when you get to January 13th and January 14th comes around and February 14th comes around in March, and I'm still not hearing anything, but my friend heard, you're in two totally different directions here, right? You are who you are, they are who they are. We don't know. You could be applying to a program that will take its time, to a school that will take its time. Okay, so keep that in mind, okay? Because we know that anxiety can ramp up. All right.
So it may seem backwards, but some of the most competitive programs give out offers later than everyone else. So don't let the date of someone's acceptance who sits next to you in class have that kind of impact. I know it's easy for us to say on this end, but just we're trying to get you ready that it's kind of a weird admission process. So just be kind of aware of that moving forward.
Yep. And then once you do receive your offers, okay, you're going to have to make a decision. Okay, so it's important that you know this. June 1st, consider that your deadline for communicating your answer, right? You need to accept your offer, and you need to do that by June 1st. All right, because you don't want that date to pass, right, Mr. Seslan? If that date
Yes,
passes,
the offers expire.
They do.
You have to accept the offer. If you don't, it will expire and it slips through your hands. So that's why you've got to really be paying attention to this process.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, so then here we go. We're ready to apply. We know all the basics. We've covered all the basics. Here we go. We go into the undergrad 101. Okay, we're going to go to ouac.on.ca and we're going to click undergrad 101. When we go into the OUAC, here's a screenshot of, we saw this in earlier slides, Rotman Commerce. I had pulled that up on the OU Info, but now I'm just kind of, I pulled it up here on OUAC as well, just to show you that the same information can be found on the OUAC that can be found on OU Info. So it's telling us here that there is a supplemental application. Again, it's telling us that's $50, right? If you scroll, I couldn't get the whole image on this screen, but you can scroll down and see admission requirements. You can learn more about U of T. This is me in OUAC right now, just browsing the programs. Okay, I'm not even ready to apply just yet. All right. Like we said, there might be some limit to program choices. This one here, it's telling us that with U of T, you can only apply to a maximum of 3, in fact, with any school, right? But you're limited to 1 choice within the faculties on the St. George campus, and 1 at UTSC, 1 at UTM as well. So the interesting thing about U of T St. George is it's pretty much, I would say, could be one of the biggest schools in the country, right? And it's only organized by 5 faculties, right? And each faculty umbrella, the Faculty of Arts and Science, is huge, right? It's this massive umbrella with so many different subjects of interest, right? You can have humanities, you can have political science, you can have comp sci, computer science, Rotman Commerce, right? Life science, everything's under 1 faculty umbrella. And they're saying here that you can only pick 1 program under that umbrella. So sounds pretty limiting, but they decided that any student, especially that's applying to Rotman Commerce, they're allowed to pick 1 additional from the Faculty of Arts and Science, right? So at least it gives them a little more a little more breathing space, some more options. It doesn't feel so limiting. All right. Again, there could be additional fees. Finding the supplemental, you can find this as well on the OUAC. Here it's telling me to click the admissions requirements to view the application and documentation deadlines. So this is right on your application site. Just wanted to show you that so you can see that you can find everything on there. There could be limits to offers, right? So I'm thinking about Brock here right now. So Brock is saying on their site, on the site here, that applicants can expect to receive 1 offer, an offer of admission to only 1 program. So this is where ranking kind of comes into play. If there's a program at Brock that you really, really, really want, and let's say you make your 3 choices Brock, I would put the program you really, really want as your first choice, because Brock's only going to give you 1 offer. Okay, so that's just one example. Again, I had said earlier, you can use the 101 to research schools, right? And even on the side, the right side here, there's all the tutorial videos, how-to videos as well. Now, once you're ready to get started and you access on the OUAC site, you just need to go down to the bottom left and you're going to click Apply Now. Previously, I was in Browse Programs, and that's where you can do a lot of your research, okay? But we're going to go to Apply Now. And the first time you log in, you need to create your account, your profile. You need to create a username and a password. Keep this handy, keep it somewhere where, take a picture of it. I don't know, but you save it into your phone, but something, if you forget, you can always reset. All right. So as you build your profile and you've created your account, it's asking for your name here. The very first thing, your first name, last name. This is where we want this to be matching with what is in our files here, our system at school. The email address, it's asking for it twice. Ensure that your email address accurate, active, right? It's the main mode of communication with the schools. You definitely don't want to miss anything from the universities, right? Any kind of communication. Here is the page where it will ask you for the access codes, right? Your PIN, the school number, the student number, this all comes in the envelope that you've received. A few notes on applying. It's $150 for up to 3 program choices. If you do wish to make more than 3 choices, you can. Each additional choice is $50. All right. Students can also make changes to choices after they've processed their application. If they do so, they may be charged another $50 for the change. They call it an administration fee of some sort. But if you were to, let's say, you went from a program at Laurier and you're wanting, something at Ryerson, right? You want to delete the Laurier program and enter the Ryerson program, you probably get charged an additional 50. If it's within the school, then maybe not, but I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that wholeheartedly because I'm not entirely sure. Just be ready that you could be charged. Schools themselves may further limit the number of choices. We did have some examples of that, but they will instruct students of the exceptions. Great example of that is U of T, right? What we just mentioned, but you will come up there. There will be an error that will pop up on the OUAC application site if you do something that you shouldn't, right? Okay. Here are some examples of some supplemental costs just in addition to the application fee. I took I sourced this right from the 101 application guide under 101 fees. Now, as you're working through, these are screenshots of the actual application here. Every screen does have a help button. So if you ever need any help, you can click the help link and it will definitely help walk you through that particular screen and what's being asked of you. Adding your personal and contact information will be asked of you as well. I don't know if there's anything I want to say here in this moment, but this is pretty straightforward. When you're ready to select your programs, you can search the programs by university if you would like, or you could use the fast track option. We would recommend the fast track option, where if you have the program codes handy, all you need to do is enter the code and the program will pop up, okay? Once you hit search. So I've used the fast track option. This is a Trent program. The program code is RLA. I inputted that program code in the previous slide there in the little box, and then the program pops up automatically. And then I can go and save this to my program choice list.
I can just jump in. Could we go back to the last slide just for a moment, Ms. Stanisic? Just as you're applying and it starts identifying each program you're applying for, please double check at that point your program prerequisites and make sure, are you meeting the standard? Notice here, you got to have a minimum of 70, but you also need to have English and a 4U math. If you apply for a program and you don't have the prerequisite, you really have to rethink that and either come and see us and add that prerequisite or change your selection, because if you don't have the prereq, you will not actually be considered eligible. So you just want to have your eyes open about that. There are rules to get into each program.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, so finding the program code, if you are using OU Info, it's under the overview. When you type in the program under keyword search, the overview will pop up. It's a really nice, handy little page. It gives you lots of good information, but that program code is what you'll need, and you want to write that down, have that handy somewhere so you can fast track your options when you get to it. Okay, so once you've selected it, okay, of course, complete the program details for each program selected, review the admission requirements. Mr. Seslaw just told us about that, just reminded us of that, but that's really very important. On this screen as well is where you can indicate whether or not, if there is a co-op option, you will see co-op, yes or no, and you can indicate that as well. They will be asking you, once you're submitting your program choices, it will generate a list for you, and then you can have the chance to number and order your choices. Okay, but as we said, it really doesn't affect scholarship or admission consideration unless a university's literature is specifically stating that it does. All right. We spoke about this. Some schools may request that you order your choices, and we have also said apply to a program with a co-op option if applicable. It's going to ask you some additional university details and questions under other academic information. Very straightforward here. Then you'll see a read-only screen, which is the current high school info and grades. So we want, with this in particular, this is where you're going to see your grades. We want you to check this over with a fine-tooth comb. We have given you, when you picked up your PIN, we gave you your status sheet. Your status sheet is your academic record on one page. You can see all of the courses that you've taken and the marks that you've achieved. The only ones that are missing from there are Quad 1 finals. Now the Quad 1 finals, they will be a part of the next transmission, which will be happening tomorrow. All right, so that, along with everything else, grade 11 marks and any other grade 12 courses you've taken, the universities will have knowledge of. Okay, so you want to make sure if there's anything that's incorrect on this page, you want to let us know. If you're a current high school student, so you are, grades will be sent by the board, by us, several times throughout the year. Just mentioned that the final Quad 1 will be sent by November 19th. It bears repeating, report errors to guidance immediately. And grade 11 marks, we did mention this in the September sessions, that grade 11 marks can be used to make early offers of admission, but of course, these are conditional offers upon receipt and review of your grade 12 marks. So you need to verify and agree that everything is correct, is accurate. All right, there are no false statements on your application. You click verify and agree, and then you can proceed to payment. Okay, so you can pay for your application by Visa, MasterCard, Amex, or you can use online banking. The only way that your application will be processed, okay, and by processed, I mean OUAC will communicate your program choices, okay, will communicate your interest to those schools, is if you pay, okay? You have to pay to have your application processed, all right? This is just, oh, I've said it already, the OUAC cannot process your application without the fee, all right? Once you've processed your application, you will receive a reference number. Please record that reference number. You should store it, and you will need to include this number when you're communicating with the OUAC and the universities, if ever you'll need to communicate with them, all right? There are students that are applying to out-of-province universities. There are some schools, I'm just thinking of a couple. I'm thinking of UBC, I'm thinking of McGill, I'm thinking Dalhousie, St. Mary. I can't think of any more now. My brain's not working. But
McGill.
I said McGill. These schools, if you're applying to these schools and you have opened an OUAC, you've processed an OUAC application as well, you can provide the OUAC reference number to these schools, and then your transcript and your grades will be submitted electronically by the OUAC. So there's a partnership there. Okay, you would just need, obviously you're going to go, if it's McGill that you want, you're going to apply on their website. You're going to follow their application guidelines. You'll complete McGill's application, and then there will be somewhere in that application that will ask you for a reference number. That's where you can input the reference number, and you won't have to worry about sending your transcripts multiple times per year. But if it's not a school that has a partnership with the OUAC, okay, and there are more that don't than do, all right, the transcripts and the marks will be the responsibility of the student, typically, okay? So if you need transcripts, come and ask us as many times as you need, but you should also be very aware of those deadlines and those dates that the schools will need those marks, okay? So scholarships, there are two types of scholarships. We went through this in the September sessions, but the two types are entrance and application driven. Scholarships that require an application, they will require community involvement and other accomplishments. They will have an academic component, and they may ask for references. So teacher references, you want to give your teacher at least a good week, or your reference at least a good week to complete a letter, right? It's courtesy. You don't want to go to somebody that morning or even 24 hours before it's due. You want to give someone enough time and enough background information so that you can really speak with them about what it is that you'd like for that teacher reference to highlight in that reference letter. All right. And this this, like any supplemental application, anything in written form, anything that is going to be used to determine your candidacy, in this case, to give you money, all right, could be money or an offer of admission. You want to take your time with this. You want to have a good editor, somebody that really you can confidently say will give you good constructive feedback, right, and suggestions for your writing, and revision. You just don't want to do this haphazardly and just kind of do this, sort of off the cuff, the night before. You want to take your time, and really get your thoughts down on paper in a way that's cohesive and coherent and concise. All right, it's really important to do that. Take your time. Check EDSB posts for various scholarship opportunities. There are few that require school nomination. In fact, those that do require school nomination have been determined, but there are so many more now. We want you to check the scholarship report. It's an electronic submission that compiles several awards during a certain time frame, and we typically post that on potential grads in EDSB. So check that often. Check various web resources as well. And on potential grads, sometimes if scholarships do come our way, we will post them, from time to time. But there are so many resources out there, online resources like Scholarships Canada and Scholartree and the scholarship report that are really, really good, resources to follow. Entrance scholarships. This here really doesn't require anything, does it, Mr. Saslan?
You just have to make sure your grades hit their requirements, and then you're automatically granted that particular scholarship. So if they begin granting scholarships, let's say at an 85% average, and you're above that, it's something that will be heading your way at that point.
Perfect.
And to keep in mind as well that first year is not the only time you can win a scholarship. You can apply for a scholarship at any point in your university year, second, third, or fourth year. The financial aid office is really an office you should get to know. They also have bursaries, which are free money. So by all means, take advantage of the financial aid office. They also have jobs for students in need. So keep those things in mind if you're thinking, how am I going to afford some of the expenses coming up? The schools are there to help you as well.
That's a great point. Thank you. Thanks for adding that. And then, of course, we have OSAP as well, the Ontario Student Assistance Program for students who need to, you may need to take out a loan, right, for school, and then pay it back later, pay it back slowly, right, once your schooling is complete. You can learn how to qualify and when and how to apply. I believe the application is open, but the OSAP website here, the link that I've provided, it's ontario.ca/OSAP, but it's very, very thorough, very detailed in the step-by-steps, like steps that you need to take in order to apply for OSAP. All right. And it is an online application. If you need any more help, please read the frequently asked questions section and the 101 application guide. You can contact OUAC directly. They are there to help you. All right, they're waiting to answer your questions. Contact your guidance counselor or speak to us via EDSB. We can set up a time to meet, or we can chat over EDSB, whatever you're more comfortable with. Sometimes it's an easy, quick question. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Sometimes students like to come in and sit with us and maybe log into their application because there's a certain part of it that they're sort of stuck on. That's totally fine. Remember, you don't need to complete your application in one sitting, all right? And we can help you through the process as needed. Another good resource would be the schools themselves. We always say, we give out general based information, right? We are not Ryerson, we are not U of T, we are not Queens, right? If you really you have a question that needs to be answered that maybe we can't answer, or you just need to hear it from them, right? They are there to answer your questions. They're waiting to hear from you, right? They want to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to contact the school admissions offices directly. Am I missing anything? I think I could have said a lot more.
I'm just going to jump in here. If a student is interested in applying outside the province or outside the country, that's self-directed. So we would ask you then, if you are thinking of applying outside the province, remember, it is up to you to do the legwork. You got to do the research. You will need a transcript, an official transcript from our guidance office. Those are steps you're going to have to take on your own. You have to educate yourself on the fees as well. If you're going to the States, do you need to write a test? Have you done that? Do you need to write the SAT or the ACTs? Those are things that we expect you to do the research on. So be aware of that. You still have time, but the clock is ticking. So you do have to make sure you're following through on those things.
Okay, I've got one. I received one question here, and I'm not going to say who from. I'm just gonna read it out, but it's a really good one. So, does having one bad mark have an effect on applications for competitive programs, even if it's not in the top 6? Okay, so the way I understand that question, I see, okay, top 6. When you say top 6, I guess it's a competitive program. I'm thinking English, and then the 5 other grade
Yes.
12 U or M, they will be
They're
specified.
required.
They'll be required. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So remember, it's a cumulative average, right? If that mark is not a required course, right? It will, and it's not one of your 6, then you need not worry about it, right? If it's outside, do you want to continue? Go ahead, Mr. Sussman, go ahead.
I think as long as the students are also aware that in some programs there are minimum grades for certain courses, be aware what that minimum grade is as well, because obviously it could be a factor if it's a prerequisite course, and if you're not meeting the minimum grade, you want to just be aware of that's the rules of the game when you're doing your application.
Right.
Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, that's good. No, that's perfect. But if it's not a required course, right, and it's not within the 6, the repertoire, the complement of 6, then it's not going to be worked in. It won't be fashioned in. Yeah, like there's no way the universities use an algorithm. They're not looking at you like, oh, let's look at this student and all of the wonderfulness. They're pulling the grades that they need, right, and then adding however many more, which would be the top marks, to make up the 6, the complement of 6, right? But Mr. Sessalon's right. If that is a required course and there's a condition that there needs to be a certain mark reach, a certain grade reached, then that's a condition of that offer, right? You need to meet that minimum mark, right? That definitely could affect admissions. Absolutely. It's a good question.
Applying for programs, the students have 3 choices, $150. Obviously, we're encouraging every student to put their dream program on there. What about having kind of a backup plan and a slam dunk school, a program you know that you're going to overshoot the average? Is that a strategy that students should be considering?
If you're asking me, I say yes, all the way, yes, right? Because I would say, you aim for your dream school, aim for the top, aim for the stars. Absolutely. Your first choice, aim for the stars. Absolutely. But there's a reason why we're making 3 choices. There's a reason why sometimes students make 4 or 5 choices, right? And you really need to cover yourself with options that I would say, as we go work down the list of program options, you want to say, hey, if I don't get number 1, I know I can meet number 2. And guess what? If I don't get number 2, number 3, it's a sure thing. I know for sure that I can meet those requirements. It's not a bad strategy for sure.
Essentially, what we're saying is we want you all to sleep well at night through the next few months, heading towards those final decisions the schools are going to be making after you apply. So we are urging you to think about a slam dunk school that you can put on your application, just so no matter what happens, you will continue to sleep soundly at night, knowing that there's a program waiting for you.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. That takes us to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for being with us today. And as I said earlier, this has been recorded and it will be posted online for you to watch again. We'll put it on potential grads in EDSB so that you can take a look at it again. If any of your friends have missed out, then you can just direct them to this, okay? Well, it's wonderful to have you all with us. We're wishing you well, a great start to the second quad, and come and see us as needed. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.